there to do that.
How are we doing for more?
And I heard
We're good.
gun shop.
We have,
Mike wasn't going to be here.
Mike Thomas was not gonna be here, and Chris is vacationing and was thinking about trying to connect electronically,
Okay,
but he said the connect would probably not be very good, so we're not counting on it.
all right, well, good.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
We can probably get going.
Yeah, that's all.
We're going to do that, folks. I think Cameron has us set up differently. Our video's down there, our audio is down there. And we have a public hearing this evening and a regular board meeting, so if it's okay with everyone, we'll go ahead and with the public hearing, and we'll call that to order with a roll call.
Johnson? Here. Liskus?
Here.
Moore?
Here.
Mike Thomas? Bob Thomas?
Here.
Shonda? Brewster?
Here. And I should have mentioned that this is public hearing for the ESSER 3 funding. There's no changes to the agenda for the public hearing, so is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda for the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed say no. Next item is ESSER 3 plan presentation.
Yeah, as the COVID has generated dollars for our school system, and there's requirements by the government, both at the state level and the federal level, of what we have to do to spend those dollars. Lisa, you have in your packet numbers of ESSER dollars and so on, but we have to spend 20% of those dollars on, I'm gonna call student achievement, on teaching and learning. That's a requirement. So you take 20% of the dollars that you have, and our formula here is what we thought was the best way to do it was simply to say, for example, how many students do we have, how many dollars? Created a formula for dollars per student, and we say to, since Matt's in the room, Matt, here's your formula, here's your number of dollars, and you have to put a plan together to address and use those dollars for student achievement. Matt can't use his dollars for waxing floors, or he has to use his dollars that are gonna apply to student achievement. So what I've asked the principals to do, and since I've said Matt's name, maybe we'll start with Matt, and he was just gonna share out. I mean, we're not gonna get into 6 box of pencils type mentality here, but it will be an overview of what he was planning to use his dollars with input from staff. And Karen's here, and Terry's here, and Julie is not with us today. So that would be the presentation part of it. And also what we're doing here is making this available to our public through this public meeting, through this hearing. And if any of our constituents, either attending here virtually, or any of our constituents, patrons, taxpayers, would like to provide feedback to us, they certainly have a right to do that. That is actually part of what we need to do, is inform them of the 20% that we're using. Matt, you want to kind of talk about what you decided?
Let me jump in a minute here. Seems to me on the agenda, we should spell out ESSER as a, if I was just a citizen, I wouldn't come to a hearing about ESSER because I don't know what the hell it is. And I think we should spell that out and kind of in parentheses tell what it is, so people catch up with us, I guess.
Do we have that on a document, Lisa?
I don't have my document, but I can.
Give us, let him speak, and then we'll come back and give the, what it really stands for.
Okay.
Can I just make sure that Chris Shondell has entered the meeting? Is he there?
Okay, thank you. Chris, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll get that for you, Bob, before.
I have it. It is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund.
Yeah, I knew that, but
Okay.
but the public does not know that.
All right, so some of the items that we're spending the ESSER dollars on at the high school do include continuing to pay for contracted mental health services with Julie DeVries, which has been a very beneficial program for our students. We're also utilizing it to purchase, or we have purchased, social emotional learning curriculum with a company called Character Strong, as well as professional development through them. We've purchased ACT prep materials to help with students preparing for ACT. Not only that, though we're not using, it's not coming all the way through the ESSER dollars. It's going to replace what we were doing with STAR, but we have, as I told the board last spring, a whole suite of the ACT tests that we will be utilizing at CHS this year for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. And that'll give us a good idea of where they are achievement-wise and help with not only, these are your strengths, these are your areas to improve and target intervention or instruction, but also kind of compare how's our curriculum doing? Hey, this is where we're achieving in this content area. Are we not giving students access to the curricula that they need to be successful in that? ACT is a great measure of career and college ready. So that's one of the big reasons we went with that suite. We also, I don't have the exact number, but it was close to $5,000. I don't know what that equates to in terms of number of students. But summer booster courses where students could work independently over the summer to work to prepare for their next school year. I'll give you an example. If we have somebody who was a freshman last year and they did a booster course in English language arts, that booster course is designed to prepare them to be ready for English 10. We had some personal experience with it at the Johnson household because my daughter, she took the booster courses for English language arts and math to help make sure that she was ready for high school. And it really wasn't an effective program, we felt, for our children anyway. Other things, we have kind of adjusted the schedule for this upcoming school year to where we have an everyday advisory where we can request students, teachers can request students to go to their room during advisory for additional targeted instruction and help should they be struggling. And we purchased it's called FlexiSchedule using ESSER dollars, which is a program that it allows us to schedule the students so we can request students to our classroom or assign them to classrooms. Teachers know where they're supposed to go, the students know where they're supposed to go. So that's helping address for their learning as well. This year, we're paying for substitutes for math teachers to give our math teachers time to pull students out. Similar to what you might, if you're familiar with title reading or title math, similar concept, except we don't have title funding at the high school, or we don't utilize it. So we're using the ESSER dollars to pay for subs so our teachers can request students and work with them individually. We've also purchased some curricular materials for the math department that allow for to help students who might be deficient in a specific skill or concept within math, so they have access to that. I do know K-12, we purchased a program called Exact Path, which screens our students, determines where they are in relation to their grade level, and then places them on a learning path to either address maybe some areas that need shored up. And this is for English, writing, reading, and math. And if they're on grade level, it even provides them with enrichment, and teachers can use this in their classrooms as well. And we've even utilized it in some instances for really flexible classroom seating and furniture, so it's much easier for our teachers to move the students around and create small group workstations. So those are some of the things that we've spent our money on, or are spending our money on, I should say.
Karen Swanson?
Yes, at the middle school, a lot of what we are doing, there's a lot of feedback.
Karen's hearing feedback.
Chris, maybe you need to mute yourself.
We can turn on the TV.
What?
Turn on
So a lot of what we're doing at the middle school, resources for intervention and enrichment, materials and training. We're going to also use MyPath and ExactPath. We are going to be using this for support staff, interventionist time for both reading and math. We are still looking for some math intervention work. We're also going to be adding before school and after school programming. So that'll be certified staff, and they will be paid for their time before school and after school. And hopefully we'll be able to work on some transportation for that as well, after school in particular. Also working on continuing with our second step SEL program, as well as our live school, and then mini libraries for classrooms. Those are things that we have already put in place. So a lot of what Matt had talked about, we are going to be working on this year as well.
Terry, I think you're. We were muted.
Terry was here.
Karen, can you hear us?
Terry's
Yep.
there.
Yep. Julie and I have worked a little bit together on this as well. We were really excited. One of the things that we felt like really meshed well at this time was an invitation from the Department of Education to participate in what is called FAST for Success. And it kind of goes back to those acronyms that Mike was speaking of earlier. FAST, as you know, has been around here for a few years. It's what we just consider a screener that is given to our students in the area of reading and math, and actually even behavior. And what that allows us to do is it just throws out there a blanket that we, in words that we say, these are students whose scores tell us they might be on track to struggle a little, or to need a little bit more support to be successful readers, or to be successful students in the area of math, or students who need additional layers of support in the social emotional area of their life. And so the state opened that up, and we, responded that we'd like to be chosen to be a part of that. And they sent back and said they had too many people, asked to be involved, that they would have to narrow it down. And we received notice that Lakeview was chosen to be one of those schools. So we were really pleased about that. We've met with them 3 times already. We have created a team of leadership teachers to be a part of that. Some of them are classroom teachers, some of them are special ed teachers, some of them are title. And it's a K-5 initiative. So it's a perfect activity for us to really engage in as we come together this year as a K-5 building. We had a cost of that at $5,000 to participate. And then we'll have some additional costs to provide for the time outside of the contract day when our teachers have been participating in those meetings, and will continue to. It's just going to be a great opportunity to learn for us. It continues to meet and provide the structure that the University of Minnesota has been involved in. And you might remember that the Reading Corps program that we utilize at Lakeview was created and designed at the University of Minnesota. And we see really, really good products for our students who've been engaged in that. So we have great hope that this will help us to continue to see that kind of student achievement for all of our students, since all of our staff will be getting that professional development, and our leadership team will, consisting of those teachers, will be involved in bringing that learning to the classroom teachers, special ed teachers, and title teachers. Julie and I also have talked about An area that we felt was really on top of already penalized by the COVID work was that population of students who have IEPs. You know, we know that it's difficult for them to learn when they're not in the classroom as well, just like everyone else was. So another area that we are aligning our funds to is to continue some professional development in the area of the Wilson curriculum. And that's a curriculum that we've seen pretty great gains in for our students as we've implemented that in the Title Run programs and in the classrooms. So we're looking to do that K-5 to send our staff, our special ed staff to that training and bring that back and implement that in our classrooms. As well as we look into that option for some after school programming as well. So just, you know, with the new curriculum that we've purchased, we didn't want to go too far and come to find out that our curriculum would cover that. So we just took some small steps and then we want to be mindful and see as the progressions go here in the fall into the early winter, what other options or what other things are available to support our students in those areas.
Questions?
One thing Terry mentioned made me think, how long do we have to actually expend the funds?
ESSER 3 is June
2024.
Say that again.
June of 2024 for the ESSER 3.
That's what I thought.
I left out too, Marty. I'm glad you reminded me of that. We also provided summer school for our students this summer, utilizing that at the K-5 level. I'm sorry, I should have remembered that. That seems like a long time ago already, May and June. But we had a number of students attend and saw some very good growth from our kids that were a part of that.
I have a few questions, I guess. Kind of talk about before and after school programs and like stuff like that. And then transportation was brought in there. Can this money be used for the transportation costs?
We can't be.
It can't be. Okay. Math, so you mentioned for the math, the extra help, things like that, hiring subs. And so the math teachers could then spend extra time.
The way it's gonna work is one day a week, we've hired one sub. And each teacher will have a time slot throughout the day where the sub will be in their classroom. And the teachers will have an opportunity to pull individual students from one of their math classes or one of their, that they have in math and be able to work with them individually.
Is that on top of before and after school?
Yes, and that's one thing I didn't mention. We are exploring how we can also do before and after school programming. Yeah, that would be on top of it as well.
I know we haven't touched base on this yet, I don't know if we will or not. No fan, I'm not a fan of for no secret, I'm not a fan of the virtual academy. $100,000, what does that go to?
The licenses. And just for this one year.
Licenses for students.
Yeah.
How many students do we have then enrolled in that?
McElroy, did you hear those comments? How many?
If she's on there, she can answer, but the last I knew, we were up to 40, pushing 50.
Yeah, Mec has joined us. Question about how many students are enrolled?
Yes, so as of today, we had 43 students enroll, and registration is not complete. So once that is complete, we'll have a better idea as school gets started. Currently for the 6 through 12 group, we are purchasing semester licenses. And that is just over, it's 1,350 for a semester license for our 6 through 12. So that includes the core courses and then electives, so they can take up to 8 courses. And then our K-5 kiddos, that includes the courses that they would take as well, and their physical education, which is required, and they will also be enrolled in an intervention program, Exact Path, that is also being used 6-12.
So Mecca, how many of those 43 are they all normally in our buildings, or are they some coming from outside the district?
Well, we have some coming from outside of the district, somewhat, if that makes sense. So because this year, remember, we cannot take open enrolled students into the virtual academy. We would have to wait until next year. We did have a couple families that were coming to us that moved into Centerville that were planning on homeschooling. And after they found out we had a program here, a virtual academy program, 2 of those students then will be enrolling in the virtual academy. We also have, I counted yesterday, 8 students that otherwise would have gone homeschooling or had initially open enrolled to another district, have now come back to us. So we have 10 for sure out of the 43 that have stayed within our district because we're able to offer this.
Okay, thank you.
So 70,000 that we think we have recouped. Rhonda, you're shaking your head, yes.
Yeah,
Correct.
we would have lost these 10 for sure.
That's more than I would have thought the first year.
Yeah, because last spring you were saying you had about 8, right?
Yeah, well,
In surveys.
I was hoping we would at least get 30. I think 33 was my
Okay.
magic number that I was hoping we wouldn't lose. And like she said, we're in the 40s, so I was just worried because of what I was seeing on the amount of kids that we had lost to homeschool, plus, you know, the uncertainty what we're doing, that we would lose those 30-some kids, whether they were homeschooled or chose to go virtual or remote. Since we're not doing remote like we did last year, some of those parents may choose, they don't want to bring them back face-to-face, and so they would have chose virtual already, so.
Chose virtual outside of, and our dollars would have followed.
Right. We know currently Albia, for example, they now have a homeschool assistant program that they're starting this next year. And of course, we know Davis County, a handful of our kids take advantage of Davis County's homeschool program. I have not sat down and visited with each of our other parents. I just know that from looking at the paperwork that we had previously, that we have 10 for sure's that would not have been in our district had virtual academy not have been an option for them.
Mike, did you have more questions? You had several, you said.
Yeah, that's everything I had.
Anybody else have more questions? Okay, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Is there anything else on the list, Tom, that you wanted to point out?
No, we just continue to monitor our dollars and you know, we've got some things we haven't paid for out of ESSER dollars yet that we haven't made our last payment on our chiller.
Right.
So, but we'll have some dollars in there. I hope this is a premature. I don't even know, that's not the right way to say it. All I know is there's still conversations going on at the federal level in terms of dollars that will come to education and kids. That's not far enough down the road to know what that will mean. Could it take the format of ESSER dollars? Maybe, but that there are still conversations going on along that line.
And Tom, we did survey the parents to see what they thought and the staff to get ideas in our decisions, didn't we? I mean, those are some of the ways we got insight.
Thank you, Terry. Are there any, after that presentation, any public comments on the ESSER 3 plan? Folks online, folks here? There aren't any, then we could have a motion to adjourn to our regular board.
So move.
Seconded.
Motion second. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. We'll just move right into the regular meeting with a call to order and a roll call.
Johnson? Here. Liskus?
Here.
Moore?
Here.
Mike Thomas? Not here. Bob Thomas?
Here.
Shonda?
Here.
Brasser?
Here. Okay, thanks, folks, for being with us this evening. At the beginning of public forum, Tom, did you want to say a few words, make sure the public knows about our meeting protocol?
Right. In July, I believe it was, we were reminded that the rules for school board meetings are as follows. School boards in Iowa have to meet face to face. In other words, our school board has to have 4 school board members in the room, which would be a quorum. Now, if 3 of them wanted to do it virtually, they could. So that has to happen face to face, as well as giving constituents, patrons, taxpayers, again, the opportunity to come face to face if they want to do that. But it's my understanding that we will continue to do the virtual opportunity. So you have 2 choices with citizens. You can either come into the meetings virtually, or you can come in person, because there will be 4 school board members at a minimum that are conducting the meeting. We just can't, we no longer can say board members are virtual. Now, I would throw that out because most of us are watching the circumstances of the country and the world, which we monitor almost on a daily basis. So I suppose there's a chance that things could change. Things could change with about every aspect of dealing with COVID and the new variant. But so I just wanted to make sure that that was clear to our community and to our staff, that that's what we have to do by law.
Any other public forum items, things that are on the agenda or not on the agenda? Folks would like to talk about, bring to our attention. Now, to end the public forum, I just wanted to make a comment to the board, if I could, and it's done to help with the, make sure our meeting minutes are accurate, and to make keeping minutes maybe a shade easier on Lisa. When we vote on items, our board policy indicates that we have to have voice votes, yes or no. Now, our policy does allow us to supplement that with Robert's Rules of Order, which gives a yes or no. You can vote present if you prefer not to vote, or you can abstain, typically used for a reason not to vote, like conflict of interest. We would ask that the board members choose one of those and say it loud enough for Lisa to be able to hear it. Now, if you choose not to vote, then the assumption is we take silence as voting with the majority. So if a board member chooses not to, then Lisa's just going to count it with whatever direction the majority went.
Has that been a problem, or why did you bring that up?
We just wanted to make sure that we get everybody's vote recorded accurately.
Gotcha.
And sometimes we don't hear what that vote is, we're not absolutely sure.
I was not audibly loud enough at the last one. So.
Okay, that's what I was.
So Lisa cornered me afterwards. I was not loud enough.
Okay.
So.
Well, we want to make sure we want to make sure the vote
No, I
is
get it,
accurately reflected. Now, we'll move on to, other than some additions to the agenda under personnel and financial, there's no changes to the agenda, I don't believe so. We could have a motion to approve it.
Should approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Sorry, Chris, my fault. We do have minutes of our July 14th meeting. Any comments, questions, corrections to our minutes? If not, if we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Bob. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Thank you, Chris. Oh, old business, under new business, the first item is actually to approve the ESSER 3 plan.
I move to approve the plan.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the plan. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Item B, athletic complex and Howard renovation projects progress update. Michelle is with us. Michelle, would you like to give us an update?
Yes, I will give you an update. You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. We'll start with the field. I'm sure you guys have driven by, or maybe not, but the turf they're finishing up some of the turf install with some of the details along the turf there at the field, at the track and field. So that's made a lot of progress here in the last week and a half. They're finishing up the bleacher pad, so that will be ready for your bleachers to be installed. I believe they get installed, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, next week. And maybe even at the end of this week. I can't recall exactly, Tim, but I think you coordinated that all with them on that end. And they're finishing up the curb and sidewalks by Thursday around the track. They'll still have that ADA walking path that goes along the ramp up to where your guys' new ticket booth will be. That will happen shortly after they finish that on Thursday. And then to follow that, they'll then start on the asphalt around the track, which is the base around the track for the new track and the track area. And then following the asphalt, they'll do the topping and then the markings. So I'll be there on Wednesday as well to kind of get a final game plan from them on getting final use of the track. I think we'll be able to get some turf use here probably, towards the end of this week, if early next week, potentially for the district. So I'll touch base with them a little bit further on that as well. I know we were trying to get the students to be able to practice out there as soon as we could. But they're moving along as best they can. They ran into a lot of rain in July, as you guys all know, but they're moving as quickly as they can. And I know Tom even, I think, indicated that they were possibly working the weekend. So that's great. We like to hear that, trying to get it done. Any questions or concerns about the track and field project?
The only thing I didn't hear was fence.
Oh, yeah. So they'll follow up with the fence right after they're done with those. Well, they'll let the curb set for about a week. They'll do the asphalt first and the topping, and then they'll follow through with the fencing.
And that's gonna be done by the end of August?
That is the plan, yes. Yep, but I need to get a final confirmation from them. They've been a little reluctant to give me a final date.
Now, is the ticket booth something that's in the bid, or is it something we're doing? Something we're doing?
And it's gonna be started next week?
Okay. Yes. The plan, they were at the last meeting, and plan is to start just as soon as we realize we don't need the ramp down there. But that big chunk of concrete that sits at the top of the ramp needs to be taken out, and ATG is going to do that for us.
One concern I have, after looking at it a little closer, down by the concession stand where you come off the bleachers, there's a lot of uneven concrete. Didn't know if that was something that.
I was up there Sunday and I saw that too. It's something you don't notice until you start doing all the nice stuff.
Yeah. Uneven, is it a walkway concrete, or is it the pad in front of the concession stand?
It's coming down from the bleachers to the concession stand.
Yeah.
I guess it's been that way for a while, but now with the new stuff, I look at it as a clear hazard.
Why don't we, we'll take a look at that and see if there's something we need to do, since we've got the place torn up.
And I don't think this year there's time for that. You start noticing things when you do nice things, right? Because painting of the structure of the bleacher, that might be a next year or the year after, right?
We'll take a look at that though. I mean, it could, if it isn't a big project, it could be worked into something too. And there's, you know, if there's a safety issue, that's changed the dynamics of it as well.
Any more questions?
Yeah,
comments?
Rochelle, go through the schedule for Wednesday's 2 meetings.
Yes, so we have a meeting for the track and field at 11:30 at Lakeview. And then for Howard, we have a meeting at 12:30 at Howard.
What day?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, yep, this Wednesday. And for Howard, an update, if you guys are ready for me to move on to Howard.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so Howard, as you guys all know, and you've probably been kept updated on that, we're focusing really on the classrooms and the corridors to get those back up and running for school to start on the 23rd. So that's been the primary focus here the last couple months. They've been doing what they can in other areas as they're available, but the focus has really been those classrooms and corridors. Good news, we had some delivery delays on the units that go in each classroom, but heard today, and I think Tom also got some update too from the contractor as well, that the units were, thank goodness, shipped, and we're in Kansas City as of 2 p.m. today, and they're supposed to be delivered to Winger tomorrow by 10 a.m. So that's good news. Those are the units that go in each individual classroom to provide them heating and cooling in those spaces. And then, so they'll start working on that. And I know Winger has several crews ready to go, and they're gonna could be potentially working around the clock to get those installed because of how delayed they were to get delivered. And following those units, they have to install the framing that go on the side of the units. And they'll do that, and that's about 2 days. So they're saying to install all the units is 2 days, to frame is 2 days. So we're looking at about 4 days from tomorrow, roughly, give or take, you know, half a day or so on doing that and getting ready. So we're hoping to, I think their hope by state is hoping to have those classrooms ready to go as soon as early next week. So I know that's important. I know Karen's been communicating with Kevin and the bi-state team as well, and with Tom as well, on trying to get the teachers in there as soon as possible. So I talked to them today as well, and just stress the importance of getting stuff done and making sure we can get those classrooms occupied. We did have the state fire marshal come last week, and they reviewed a couple items that they needed to review, and then they're going to be back actually on the 18th for temporary occupancy. So that means that everything will be done in those corridors. Fire alarms will be ready to go. Everything will be ready for the state fire marshal to come and walk through and give us the green light. We did talk to him about just making sure that we have no issues on the 18th. So bi-state feels confident that we're going to get approval on the 18th for temporary occupancy in those spaces. And then kind of moving to do anyone have any questions on the classrooms or the corridors or those areas?
Questions? Not right now, Rochelle, please go on.
Okay. And so I just kind of wanted to touch a little bit on the other areas that we have going on, obviously, right now, and the actual heating and cooling of those spaces. So we have a air handling unit and also a chiller. Those have not been delivered yet either, but those are hoping to be delivered here this month and early next month. So once they get those delivered, then we can work on the heating and cooling aspect of those units. They won't need to work in those classrooms. There might be a few odds and ends things they need to do, but they would not do that during classroom hours. And the major remodel areas of that space are still being continued to be worked on, as they're not focusing on the classrooms. They kind of shift around, right, to make sure they're always staying busy. But they've sheetrocked quite a bit of space in those remodel areas, and those are tentatively to be done and up and ready to go. I think we're looking at probably the October timeline for those areas. And that's all been coordinated with Karen and Tom on how we're gonna operate those areas in the time being.
So
Any
Rachel, when you
other-
say the units are, Rachel, when you say the units are gonna be installed and are delivered and installed, they're not gonna be functioning though because of the air handling and the chiller.
Correct. And that
Okay.
was, yes, and we've known that since the beginning of the summer, just based on the lead times that we received from the manufacturers, that it was gonna be tough to get those operational for school to start. So yes, that is correct. But they'll be installed, and they'll be installed at least. So they'll be able to, they won't have any major work. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is there any risk to not having heat this winter?
Oh, no, our plan is to have heat for winter.
Okay.
Yep. That's the goal, is to be ready for heating season. That is the goal. And I will, again, on Wednesday, I'll kind of we've been focusing so much on these classrooms. We'll kind of come back to that a little bit more, but that's kind of everyone's intention. And that's always been the goal since day one for heating season. So.
But we're confident all the equipment is gonna be available to have heat for the winter.
That's, I mean, yes, but I don't want to say that, unfortunately, these units were supposed to be delivered, 4 weeks ago. So there's just been, they were sitting in Texas for an unfortunate amount of time because they couldn't find people to drive the trucks to bring them up here. So
They're available, it's just a
hopeful.
transportation issue.
We're hopeful still. So, but yeah. So as of now, we have good dates as of now.
Okay.
So, yep.
Well, if the units are available, we just need a truck, we can solve the truck.
I know. I right? Don't you think? You think it would be a little easier than that, wouldn't it? So.
I have friends with trucks. I just need to know.
Okay, I'll let you make sure
No,
we
I'm
let you know
serious.
if we do have shipment. I know, I'm saying we'll make sure we let you know if we have shipment issues again with those other units, for sure. So. Any other questions or concerns? I know we're running up really close to open school time. And I know there's still a lot to do, but I'm hoping that, with getting these units in, we have some more confidence now that we can get this done. So.
Any more questions for Michelle? Michelle, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Our next item is a presentation on our high school English language arts curriculum. There's some guests.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank Cammie, Carissa, and Hayden to come in. They're our English language arts department at the high school. And I asked the three of them to come into this evening, primarily to answer any questions that any of the board members might have. Last spring, if you remember, the board was brought a request to purchase English language arts materials. And that was for, I believe, kindergarten through 8th grade. The high school staff went through the same process in terms of reviewing materials to determine, what series or what resources they might like to purchase. In reviewing the materials, our department came to the conclusion that they have a curriculum in their core classes that is aligned to the Iowa core standards, and that should they purchase it, it might not be the wisest use of the district's money to spend the tens of thousands of dollars that the ELA resources might cost the district should we purchase them for the high school. So in discussing with the department, we talked about, okay, well, let's make sure that we just like have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed, and let's make sure that we have down on paper for everyone to see the scope and sequence of our English 9, 10, and 11 courses. So the scope and sequence documents have been provided. Along with those scope and sequence documents are kind of our matrices or a matrix for each of the classes that kind of shows unit by unit where the reading, writing, and listening standards are covered throughout the curriculum. Also within that is a list of resources that are curricular support materials that they would like to purchase for the classes that are taught. So, really that's the curriculum presentation. In lieu of purchasing the My Perspectives like the K-8, or I know the middle school purchased My Perspectives and the elementary purchased the Wonders, which I believe is from the same company or similar company. That this is the plan from the high school English Language Arts Department on the resources that they would need in conjunction with the curriculum that they would need in order to meet those standards. So I told the ladies that if there was anything additional that they would like to add, they are more than welcome to do that. But I asked them to attend this evening in the event that you might have any questions.
Okay. Like to share anything before we ask questions?
Well, I was here 6 years ago to purchase the collections textbook that we have, and we've got 150 of each of the textbooks for all the grade levels. It meets the standards, it keeps the canon. When we looked at the other textbooks that were optional for us to purchase, they all basically use the canon of taught English texts, like the American Lit texts or classics. The 10th grade are basically science and literature, and they're also the classic authors. Sometimes they just alternate the story the author has written, but they're always using a canon. So I know Chris and I both thought the book we have now that we already paid $60,000 to get is only 5 years old, and the stories are still relevant, the issues are still relevant. We can supplement with other things, which is not binding curriculum. The curriculum is the core. We just pull supplemental materials to meet the needs that we see for each student, and we constantly switch them in and out depending on what our students need. I know Hayden has some textbook or some literature books that she's going to discuss with you, but as far as what we were doing, we're okay with what we already have, and it's doing the job that we needed to do. And I mean, it's only a 6-year-old series, so we didn't really need anything else. So that's my spiel.
You sure?
I concur.
So you're coming to us to not ask for money?
Correct.
Or less.
Less.
It's close to $8,000 in materials.
Yeah.
We're not used to that.
We're an unusual bunch, but no, the books that we're using right now, the collections book works for what we need, and then I still use a textbook from earlier because it has Julius Caesar and it's a classic. It has the lottery and it's a classic. Hayden is, she's young, she's diverse, she's got new ideas, so she is here because she does want to do a little changing in English 9 so that they're also bringing in some novels. So if you have questions for her, because that's a whole different ballgame for the freshmen, they've never approached it as reading as literature circles and novels before, so she's got some innovative things she's gonna try as well. So let her get any questions for her.
Are too, for I teach literature too, so some of the books that's for that too, and some of them are also would be interchangeable if I decided that I wanted to pull one of the books that we're reading in English 9, use it in Lit, or vice versa. So, I mean, I'd be utilizing them in multiple classes.
So a very small number, so it's like $8,900.
I think it was actually
$7,800.
Well, I'll tell you, when I first looked at the reading list, I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of books on there that right off the bat are very hot topic issues right now.
Do you mean the reading list, the 9th grade list of books, or all of them?
Several of them, I guess, that is 5
9th
or
grade?
6,
Yeah.
okay?
Said she's young and she's diverse. She's fresh out of college.
So how are you going to deal with that when it comes to parents in our area saying, my kid is not reading that book?
I've dealt with that a little bit over the past couple of years. One of the things that I try to do right off the bat is just having open communication with the parents and preparing them for the books and preparing the students for the books, and that they're all entitled to their own opinions. We're just looking at this perspective. You can have your own opinions, and that is just fine. But we're just gonna have collaborative discussions, and I've never really had any problems in class with it. We've had a couple of parent issues in the past, but nothing in the classroom, and it's been dealt with respectfully and everything, I would say. It didn't end up being too big of it. I mean, it was handled. And all of them are books that have been taught in other classrooms, in other districts and stuff, and that have positive reviews from teachers. I'm bringing in curriculum from other teachers that have taught the books and have recommendations for it. But overall, some of them have some, I don't know how you phrased it, like hot topics right now.
So political,
Yeah, but
yeah.
overall, and I have a discussion with the students before we read every book, that we're not going down the political route with it. We're merely looking at the characters' perspectives, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's one of our standards, is looking from perspectives and analyzing character development, so.
And
I agree.
Thank you.
And I'm not saying I disagree or agree with it here, but, so I picked immediately like 5 of them out, right? That I feel are just off the bat, I was like, ooh, okay.
Tell me the 5.
Yeah.
So,
4 at least.
I didn't know them here, but, so the Tell Me Who You Are, Quote of a Country.
Yeah. That's in our collections textbook, actually.
That's in the textbooks, yeah.
But there were like 5 or 6 that I saw were like,
well.
So I guess my question would be, okay, so those that are leaning, let's say on the right, okay, how are you gonna counter that by saying, okay, there's these ones too that equal it out, balance or whatever?
Yeah. So, I mean, I carefully choose that too, is making sure that both sides of stories are being shown, because I don't want to, like, I don't want the students to feel like I'm promoting a certain side of anything. So we look at both sides of it, and actually to address, I talked with Matt on Friday about Tell Me Who You Are, and I've decided I'm still gonna keep it a narrative unit, but I'm gonna switch my resources, so I'm not gonna be using that book this year, but.
I just need to ask you, you didn't rule that book out because of potential controversy, did you?
I wouldn't, I would say with the.
Please don't do that.
No, and it's not so much that, it's, you know, she uses a variety of different resources in class, some of which are from diverse perspectives, which actually within, but saying the Iowa Core is probably the wrong thing to say, but we do have multicultural, gender fair approaches within our education, that we are supposed to have a wide variety of perspectives. And that's not only like, has to do with content of stories and materials as well as authors. And that is definitely one thing that Ms. Hank brings to the table when she teaches. I would say with the Tell Me Who You Are, and maybe some of the activities with it, we have discussions about it, and it makes sense to do something maybe a little bit different next year than what she did last year. So to characterize it as controversy, I don't think that would be the right way to characterize it. I think it's maybe approach is a better way to, a different approach would be a better way to characterize it, if that makes sense. Because that Tell Me Who You Are is part of her narrative unit, and Hayden, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but giving a diverse perspectives of people's experiences based on characteristics about them. So maybe they are a minority in a small town. Maybe they are of a different maybe they're not heterosexual. There are some resources like that, which can lead into pretty sensitive topics and sensitive discussions, and we want to be mindful of the audience that we're providing that to. So like Hayden said, and like I said, with that particular unit, which you pointed out, that book, the Tell Me Who You Are, Mike, I think there's going to be a different approach.
And
Just to be fair, I guess,
Yeah.
knowledge is everything, okay?
Yeah.
But I'm trying to get ahead of a potential problem that I see.
No, I understand
Okay,
that,
so-
yeah.
And she said that some of the books could go between literature and English 9. Well, a book of that caliber might be better taught maybe your first year with it to the upper kids in her lit class, because those would be juniors and seniors, because freshmen and sophomores can't take it. And that might be something that she would consider, is maybe moving it to a different age until she's comfortable with how it's going to be handled. Since the group would be a smaller test subject group.
Are there other board members that have the same concerns as Mike?
Well, I guess I didn't know the context of that book, but my eyebrows were raised when I saw there was a book by Lady Gaga, and my first, and my first thought is, what literature educational, what do you call it? What's that? Standards, yeah, what is her, what does Lady Gaga have to do with educational, I can't think of a word, but.
How's it fit with the standards?
So
What's that?
she's not really, I mean, her name's on the front of the book, but she's not really the author of the book. It's more of an anthology. It's similar to Tell Me Who You Are, but it doesn't focus like specifically on like what has been your struggle in your life. It's more just just narratives of everybody's lives and stuff like that, almost like I don't know if you're familiar with like the Humans of New York stories and stuff like that, just like talking to random people and finding out their stories. So it's similar to the other one, but less focused on like what makes you different or whether you're a minority or anything like that. So it's not really written by her, but.
And I'd say another thing that Hayden does a good job of in teaching freshmen is providing opportunities to read things that are maybe a little more contemporary, or things that they can, I'll say, relate to as a result of them being more contemporary. You can see within English 9 she has a graphic novel unit, which graphic novels, maybe you would think of that almost like comic book-esque, but trying to find different ways to reach students and get them interested in the readings versus just your typical run-of-the-mill, novel that you might read, though she does do that as well. I know also one from the English 9 curriculum, and I don't know the name of the unit off the top of my head, but basically it's a series of books that she has the students split up in, and the books are about students that have disabilities. Is that the right way to characterize it? Maybe blind, deaf, physical disability, developmental disability. And I know that created some really strong connections for the students in our classes. And that might not be your typical unit that you and I might have been subject to when we were freshmen in high school, but I know that she found it very successful in reaching her students.
Yeah, thank you for that. I guess I have no problem. I thought this was a fantastic list of resources. And I would just ask us to remember that these teachers are not teaching their parents. They're not teaching us. They're teaching a whole new generation that's frankly quite a bit different than we are.
Well, and Marty, I get that, and I completely understand. I'm talking though, when you have a parent.
And we just have to remember, that's who they are, the parent.
Right.
They're not the student.
But they also they're gonna be the ones that are coming to Matt, right, the teacher, I'm fine with this list, okay? I'm trying to get ahead of a problem here.
No, and I appreciate that, and that's something, and I'm not gonna say that I have fielded parent phone calls, and we've worked through it. You either you give them a better understanding of, okay, well, this is what maybe you've heard, or your son or daughter told you, okay, well, this is actually what's happening, and this is actually what the resource was and the discussions that I've had. In some instances, okay, we understand that maybe you would prefer your son or daughter not to do this. We could come up with an alternate assignment if necessary. Now, I guess one thing that I would bring up, I think is kind of germane to this discussion, and some of you might be familiar with it, is House File 802 that Governor Reynolds signed, I believe, last spring. And there's been a lot of buzz across the nation. And I guess you hear the word critical race theory, but this was something at SAI that was discussed. And we have kind of legal, an FAQ document that kind of says, hey, these are things kind of governed by the law. And some of that is the idea of systemic racism and systemic sexism. And, you know, we are educated on that, and we know what the law says in terms of when you're using a resource, and if it's saying this or that, you know, really we can't do that because of House File 802. You can say this is systemic racism, this is the definition, but to teach that maybe the United States or our legal system or judicial system is systemically racist or sexist, we can't do that. It's against the law.
Do you think anybody was actually doing that? I thought that was just something in law school. I think it's BS.
Yeah, Bob, I would tell you that there's probably some classrooms across the nation, maybe even the state of Iowa, where that topic is broached in a high school.
You might be right there, yeah.
Maybe in some upper level classes. I got exposed to it in my master's classes, Ron, that I did in Iowa State, which was a heavily rooted program in social justice leadership, which doesn't just have to do with minorities, but also how can we better serve traditionally underserved populations. What's that?
They got into the ability groups.
Yeah, ability, et cetera. So there's no doubt it's a hot button topic right now. And we want to make sure we know, A, what the law says and what we can and can't do. And I guess even more importantly, associated with that, what are we doing and saying and talking about as well to make sure that we're following the letter of the law.
I'm kind of convinced the lawmakers who voted for that don't know what they're voting for. It was written by that Alex committee, those conservative people, and they make a model law and every state passed it, but I don't think they know what they even voted on. But there's a lot of talk out there, but no substance that I can find at all when I listen to radio things where they talk about.
It's a great conversation.
And the nice thing about her being young and contemporary, as you put it, is it does give a nice balance as we're older teachers, but we also, well, we're doing the class.
Experience.
Yeah, experienced, very experienced. Highly experienced.
You're
But-
experienced, I'm older.
We'll go with that. But we have the classics in both of ours, and she doesn't have the classics, so they do get a nice mix of this is what's out here, here are some of the classics, because you need to know both when you go to college. You need to know both if you're gonna have an intelligent conversation with people. So it's nice to be able to reference the contemporary topics and the classics, and we have a nice mixture, I think, across
Well,
three
and
grades.
juniors are mostly even a step further in that they are historical and foundational documents. We do a lot of Constitution and Bill of Rights, all that legal stuff. So
It's a nice mixture.
Are there more questions? I had a question. If there's any more questions? I should know the answer to this. I've been on the board long enough, but I wanted to ask it. How do you know that it's effective? How do you know what you're teaching? I mean, we all like to point to scores at some point in time. Proficiency, however you want it, English language, arts proficiency. So is that how you gauge? How do you
Traditionally,
gauge?
our scores are pretty good. I mean, we don't, well, not gonna, I don't know what the scores are. Not sure about the COVID year, but traditionally, we've either hit or exceeded the 80 percentile rate. And I know personally as a teacher, I have lots of students that come back from college and say, yeah, what you taught us was really helpful. I can write, I understand literature, I'm helping my peers, I'm assisting in class, and they're doing it at the college level. So I would say the success has been.
And like Matt said too, we're building relationships by, bringing some of these things to the table. I mean,
I would also say in terms of measure of effectiveness, a couple of things. Number one, the work our district across the board, but I'm just familiar in our building with standards, our standards work, and making sure we understand what are our priorities within all of our departments in terms of the standards we're addressing, and then working to align our assessments to the standards. I would say I'm very confident in our English and language arts department in how they have aligned their instruction and assessment to their standards. In a couple of ways I know that is, number one, our Iowa assessment / ISAFS scores within the areas of English and reading traditionally are our stronger scores, like Cammie pointed out. This being the COVID year, the scores we have those scores now, and we do have an area within our ELA that is at 80% proficient, which is really good. I've also been learning some things with our ACT scores and being able to dive into that data a little bit more. And if you look at our over the past 4 years, our trend, that's the word I was looking for, the trend over the last 4 years in the areas of reading and in the areas of English language arts with ACT, you're seeing steady progress, improvement over the last 4 years, from the 17-18 year to, I was actually looking at that today, to the 2021 year. Some of that you can account to variance of students, but you could also, I think when you see that over time, it's also a reflection of the instruction that we're having in our classroom. And it's not just the college-going students too, because when you look at some of our scores and you break it down demographically, and maybe some of the students that aren't attending four-year colleges, their proficiency or their scores are very good, at least compared to state average, which it's always nice to be above state average in those areas. So, I have a lot of confidence in our English and language arts department in what they teaching to the standards, as well as making sure each of our students we're helping them work to meet the standards. They don't always get there, but I had a lot of conversations with all three of these ladies concerning student achievement, and they take a lot of personal pride in their work with every student, not just college-bound students, but workforce-bound, military-bound, trade school-bound. They do a great job.
Thank you. I'm really good as a board member. I'm glad that you have level of confidence in some of the assessments that we have available to look at.
Also want to point out that you're actually only looking at the core of 9, 10, 11. We have, I think, 17 different options for electives that we do as well. So you're actually just seeing the core, right? The 9, 3 levels.
These are the classes that every
Everybody
student that
takes.
goes to CHS, every student takes these classes. After the junior year, it kind of branches off into different, we might call them electives. We do need 4 full years of English language arts, but the path could be a little bit different. Some take comp with Cammie, some take lit, some take grammar, some take strategic reading. It's just to meet the student needs and what their individual plan is.
Is there a need for us to invest, let me call it that curriculum? Are there any needs that we're not meeting for the 12th grade?
No, I think we have 3 different pathways. We have the college-bound pathway, a career-bound pathway, like the workforce-bound, and then we do have a military-bound. So they can take classes in any of the areas that they want to, depending on what their interest level is. And I know that I was at the meeting for Indian Hills on Friday, and they're bringing in a class that's similar to comp, but it is geared towards the career pathway, and I haven't had a chance to tell Matt about it. But they know that there's a need there because a lot of people are going into the 2-year heating and cooling, and they need a specific type of writing skill for that. So we've been trying to do that with applied English, so we have more of a business writing kind of pathway as well.
Technical writing.
Yeah, it's a technical.
Yeah.
So, and they're trying to develop that course as well, so it can be available to high school kids, because they know that some students are not going to a 4-year school. They know their life is being an electrician, or their life's being a plumber, and there's certain writing skill that doesn't need to be in that area. So they're developing those courses to kind of help out. So I think our partnership will help out us hit all the needs that we have. The only class we don't offer is speech, and none of us are certified to teach speech. But we have a communications class, so we still cover the speech presentation, they just can't get college credit for it.
Do you think one of you should be qualified in speech? Is there a need for that? I mean, that used to be important.
The only college that requires it as part of your freshman year is Iowa with rhetoric, and they've been taking it, most kids take it at Indian Hills.
And I would say, Bob, one of the things that we can continue to improve on is those presentation and speaking skills embedded, because they really should, for the Iowa core, it's embedded into the curriculum. Math, science, social studies also have reading, writing, and speaking skills associated with them. And that's something we continue to try and improve upon, incorporating those skills into our courses.
So we do have a communications class, and the rest of the teachers in the district. Well, we'll be teaching it. I have been teaching it.
Let me get off the subject a minute, because it came in my head, and I'll forget it if I don't say it now. There was this whole discussion of intelligent people on Facebook, how we should be teaching financial, the thing that we teach in that required financial what. Get something in the pitch that tells people we're already teaching that stuff, and they don't need to waste their time having a debate how we need to have it, because we already have it.
It's a required.
And we've had it for several years, but these people are out to lunch or something, I don't know what's going on there, but. I know, too much free time.
More questions for our guest? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Doesn't want to say anything about it.
Yeah.
So, I'll get you.
We can do that. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next item is approved participation in federal/special programs, consolidated grant, and point program contacts. We have a list in our packet. Tom or Rhonda, is there anything to add about that list?
It's pretty much the same list as last year. I did add Emily, who's at fire school registration contract, or contacts. She was really spearheading the registration and she's done $3 million. Add her to that.
Yes, these are the ones who approve.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, Rhonda, how many homeless kids do you think you deal with in a year?
I don't deal with that many because they're not getting reported to me, and I've started having that conversation with the principals and secretaries about we need to do a better job of letting me know to get a good count, because we don't have, once you hit 25, there's funding available for that, which we're not at, but
I think part of it, sorry for jumping in.
it's just a lack of understanding.
Yeah, it's A, a lack of understanding, and then B, also, what we've been communicated now is if we think there's a possibility, report it to Rhonda and she can look into it. And the definition, I think Rhonda said this before, what homeless means, doesn't mean they're living on the streets.
Right.
What does
It
it
could.
mean? What does it mean?
It could mean that we call it couch surfing.
Right.
So they could be going, or a multifamily home.
Okay.
Or something.
Yeah, a lot of them are doubled up, multiple families living together. It's just a lack of a stable.
So we don't have tent cities like you see.
Well, we don't, we have areas that,
People living under a bush at Hardee's, they come out in the morning.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, with their backpacks.
And I tell you, I mean,
Yeah,
if you don't have 25, I
I
can
think we
think
do.
of that right off the bat.
Yeah, see, and that's what, because what I found within the past year especially, I'll be in meetings or something and somebody said, well, I'm like, you didn't tell me that, nobody's telling me that. So I need to do a better job as the homeless person of getting that out there. Like I said with the principals when we met that day, is I need people to report it to me so I can verify it. And Luann brings names to me a lot of times because of the kids she's working with. And I've got a form that I've created that I can give her to help get them different types of assistance. There's some things we can do and some things we can't, so.
Because I mean, the couch surfing, that makes perfect sense that there's a lot of that, and
Yeah.
and the double up, I
And
get
an
that.
immediate thing I do is notify food service because they're immediately entitled to free food. Of course, that's not an issue this year, but in the past, that's what I
But
make sure.
you say when they get to 25, there's funding. What is that funding? What is the purpose of that funding? What does it do?
Just to help with like supplies and things like that. We've had times where you can buy certain things, there's criteria. I mean, you can't buy them a hotel room or things like, we have people come and say, can we just put them up for a night in a hotel? We can't do that. Things like that, you know.
But probably clothes and backpacks.
Clothes,
and
backpacks.
like
things that we
shampoo
have.
stuff. Kids would come to school, shower, change
Okay.
clothes.
And not have to rely on donations possibly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Which we're lucky to get a lot of donations. We have in every school building, we have hygiene
Okay.
pantries and food. or
So I want to
clothes.
bring up an issue, and hear me out to the end, because it might sound a little self-serving, but it's not. Just wait for the end, okay? Probably 6-8 years ago, Whirlpool did a little test study, and what they did was they put washer and dryer in a school in California, so that teachers could do the laundry for kids that just needed it. And so then they had a program where you could apply for, and then they were donating some there around. And so I gave this to Terry years ago. She applied, didn't get all that kind of stuff. So I've talked to Terry several times over the last couple of years about this. Is there a need? And she and Julie both says, yes, there is a need, and so forth. And so the self-serving part is not buying washer and dryers for me, but if you will figure out how to get the plumbing and the utilities installed in Lakeview, I will donate a washer and dryer. So Terry and I looked at, and Julie looked at a spot, and there's not a lot of good spaces out there. You gotta go back in the boiler room, not the new one, but kind of the old one. But if we can figure out how to get some hookups in there, I will give one so that they have that to do. I'll give a set.
You're generous, Kevin.
I know, like in the past.
What about, sorry, Terry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I think the thing is that makes it hard, you know, Rhonda has done a good job telling the administrators, but I think the key thing we all just need to be mindful of is that, you know, with that comes some personal feelings. So people don't really jump out there and call the school and say, hey, I'm homeless. You know, it's through conversations with teachers where, you know, a teacher will say something about you don't have your work done, and a child will say, hey, we've been staying at my aunt's house. We don't have, you know, we don't have enough money to get the oil in, you know, in the burner. I mean, things like that. So I think there's probably more of a need than people realize, but there is some pride there that people really aren't running out there waving their hands, hand it to me. But in the past, the high school really helped us out when we didn't have access to washing. And that would be sometimes they would let us send our clothes out to the alternative school and our students' clothes that needed washed because they had animal feces or smells to them or coats. So if we had a central laundry, I know we could sure return that favor back to the other buildings as well, whatever building it would be located in. You know, we have people who could run and help support that, but it is done really well in our district as far as protecting people and protecting their pride. I think that happens in every building very, very well.
Well, what I was gonna say is if Mike already knows things that maybe we don't know, you know, is there a way, is it okay to communicate that to Rhonda, especially if that means funding, to be like, you know, here are the people?
Mine
Or is
depends
there a
on
process?
reason, and mine gets a little dicey about as far as what I can report, so. I was thinking the same kind of thing though, as yes, with DHS can give numbers or CETA.
But when I talk to them, they have the same issue that they're trying to actually identify them. Because a lot of times, like Terry said, that they don't think they're necessarily homeless because they've got a roof over their head. And that doesn't mean you're not homeless. So there's just a lack of understanding of
I'll check in to see what I can
Mhm.
relay.
It's a great topic. Thank you again, Kevin.
It's something she and I talked about 8 years ago, and I probably should have given this 8 years ago, but the results of this program was the improvement of attendance and improvements in performance of kids in this test school that they did. Therefore, they started doing this across, and I don't know if they're still doing it or not, but I'll do it here for you, just figure out how to get it.
It's still in the news, you see every once in a while.
But there's gotta be a place that's gotta have the right power, it's gotta have drains, it's gotta have water and all that kind of stuff.
Worship grade, really close to
that side.
my junior high has a worship.
We looked and there's a couple places, you gotta go back. Terry can walk you through where she showed me, so, yeah.
I would think we'd be able to identify, not that it wouldn't take some work and, yeah,
But you wanna have it away from the food service machine.
So the funding part of it, Lisa can talk more about this, but the money we get currently, we just have to set up a percent or a piece of it comes out of the title funds is what it's in, it falls under the title programs, homeless does. And so we budget a small amount for that, but like I said, if we can identify a greater number, then it opens us up to more funds under the title funds.
Several years ago, we actually got a washer and a dryer at Howard for our skills 1 and 2 classes so that we can help teach kids about laundry, but also so that we can help kids with laundry. That being said, I do want to actually agree with what Terry said. There's a lot of pride in that. We have taken some phone calls of parents who were frustrated with us when we offered that service for their kids. So it's a little bit of a fine line, but I think it is really important, and it's something that it's a good skill for our kids to learn, number one, but it's also important for us to help our students. So I just wanted to share that.
I forgot we put one up there, we also put one over here.
Preschool?
That was more just to kind of help with that age, with kids that age.
Yeah, so Lakeview's probably the only building that would have.
Yeah, I don't think that needs one, but.
That has like a family room.
Oh, family computer.
And in one of our life skills rooms that we.
Okay, I didn't know that, so, yeah, so Lakeview is the one that needs one.
But I mean, something to think about, I mean, the capacities are really small, but something to think about when we move forward at the high school. It's not uncommon at the high school level, especially in like around the locker room facilities, that they have a pretty good washer and dryer.
Yeah, as we start to design locker rooms, I'm willing to help, so.
Thank you.
Is it E-rate? What is that?
It deals with technology.
Cameron,
It's like federal funding for us to get basically connectivity.
we do need action on this, don't we?
Sure.
Is there a motion to approve our program context for 21-22?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say yes.
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 Thank you, folks. We need to designate our, make sure I skip anything, designate an investigator, alternate investigator, and level 3 investigator, research allegations of student abuse by employees. We have there our proposed list. Has anything changed from prior year?
folks that have been engaged in, they're on your contract and have been trained.
Any questions? Please ask. And if not, I think we do need a motion to approve those folks.
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mike. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed say no. Thank you. Approve our 2080 agreement. Update Receipts and payments with Kids World Preschool, the agreement was in our packet, and Casey, you indicate there's no changes from prior year. Are there any questions about it?
I move to approve the agreement.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Don, you're going to give us a report on Central Court property?
Right, Lisa and I debated whether we wanted to leave that on there when we were putting it together, because we haven't heard back from Mike Brady. Mike is working with the agreement that a bidder could come in and get. And so, and we don't have that back. I thought maybe we would, but, and I certainly don't want to imply that Mike isn't busy, because he is, and he'll get it when we can. So I just wanted you to know, and the public to know, we have put up a sign, you may have seen the sign, and we can certainly take inquiries, and when we have our document, then people can pick it up. And then working with Mike on timelines and some of those things. So it's moving, it's public, once we get our documents, people pick it up, and then we'll see how it plays out. That's really no action on it, but there will be action on it, hopefully sometime. And this is probably running an issue into the ground, but just to say very briefly, Mike and I have had a couple of conversations about how cautious the school board is, the school district is, in terms of who ends up with the property. And he has done work for the city with the same concerns. So I just want to say, we've talked about it, we just want to make sure our language that Mike proposes to us is what the board wants, so we can protect our community from something going in there that will be an eyesore someday, or something that we want to be in there.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions for Tom?
Have the windmill folks when they moved in?
The windmill folks, oh yeah, they've been in, and they've paid their rent. So no, just, we just had a few little quirks in the process.
Oh, I didn't know, okay, I was just.
No, they've been in there, they were very appreciative. I was in there last week and the week before and just chatted with them, and I think they're just gonna use space, and probably when their time runs out there, we'll never know they were there. But they're up to speed on their rent.
Our next item is approve a therapeutic classroom consortium agreement.
I'll speak to this. This has been a conversation that we've had in our district in terms of some of our most challenged and difficult kids. And how are we dealing with them? And what's the time it's taking? And just, some kids that deserve to have services that maybe we want to be better at. But there aren't that many. So when you try to just hire people for 2 or 3 kids, so superintendents put their heads together and we say, do you have 2 or 3 kids that need really special services? And I was the one, and I'm just going to be sounding incredibly arrogant here, but I got just so frustrated that we weren't addressing the fact that we had a lot of kids that needed mental health services. Now, this is just not mental health services for children, but it's a part of it that most districts don't have access to. So over a year's time, we met, we talked. And so you see in the agreement here, the school districts that have come together to offer this program. Where am I in here? You see Albia, Centerville, Sheraton, and Wayne, Moulton, and Moravia that have come together. So there will be, and as you know, maybe you don't know, in Blakesburg, they have a lot of space in their school. Blakesburg took this on, Eddyville Blakesburg took this on as the lead district, be the lead people that will manage it with us coming in to support it. And then as a consortium, we will have more kids that can take advantage of, and we can hire now because there's a job for 5, 6, 7 people that are specializing in this therapeutic classroom for kids. It's not that's probably greater detail than what we need right now, but it's a special needs, it's special education, it's funded through special education funds. And so this contract, and I know quite often you say to me, and I will, if you want me to, you say, have we had our attorney look at it? Our attorney has not looked at it because this type of arrangement exists throughout the state of Iowa with numerous other school districts that have come together. But you have to have, the Department of Education has to approve it. And essentially, they wrote the content of what needs to be in the consortium. And then Brett Nitschke is an attorney that serves the Eddyville Blakesburg district, and he looked at it as well. So attorney has looked at it and the DE has looked at it. They said this is just fine, this is the way it can work. So kids would go there, you'd be staffed in, you'd create a program, have additional services, and the superintendents that were in these conversations, and more than that, people that have real higher expertise in special education than a bunch of superintendents. But it's a program that I think we should take advantage of, and I'd ask that you approve it. Be an ongoing assessment. And,
so how does this differ than an alternative high school?
this is for elementary kids.
Well, for that, okay.
It's for younger children. It's,
pick up on that.
and it isn't. It is not designed. The program is not designed for high school kids. It's designed through K through 8. And in its the thing that I want the board to know, this is not a dumping ground. This is not a place to necessarily get rid of a child because they're difficult. This is identifying a child through a staffing process that the staffing team realizes they can potentially take advantage of a different type of environment than maybe what we have in any of these schools.
I guess I missed the age criteria. So this is to be housed at Eddyville?
No, at Blakesburg.
Eddyville, Blakesburg. Okay, sorry,
Blakesburg.
Yeah, over. Yeah, I know Blakesburg. Yeah, I should have said Blakesburg because I know that's where the school is. So looking at all the schools that are in this, Wayne County is the furthest. Do they have any estimation of how many kids are going to be moved there?
It will be a low number. Rhonda, I don't know. You probably have.
They ask us to reserve spots. We all kind of divvied up the spots. I requested 2 for us.
Okay.
So it's not, like Tom said, it's not a lot, but we once in a while have those kiddos that just need an intervention more than we can provide here.
Do the parents have a vote?
Yeah, I mean, you can't, yeah.
Yeah.
They would be part of the conversation.
So can the parents say, no, I'm not letting my kid go over there?
They can say no, but then we can, that's why you have a meeting and discuss this, because sometimes it gets to the point, the academic setting we have here is not appropriate. So it's not, like Tom said, it shouldn't be a dumping ground, but the conversation will be with the parent, what type of services, therapeutic services, because it isn't supposed to be a therapeutic classroom, which means the mental health component is inclusive with the educational setting that we can't provide here. It's like they're in the room.
So,
Just to help answer that question a little bit. If you're trying to provide services to a youngster that we're talking about in this case, and you don't have mom and dad that are supportive of it, you're really not getting off on the right foot, obviously.
right, that's the concern.
It's a real concern. I think what Rhonda's saying, well, under certain circumstances, could you place a child there? But I know staffing teams, not only our folks, but at the AEA, work very hard at educating parents as to why this is an option for them they shouldn't pass up. And I think I can say, Rhonda, to special ed, many of our parents are struggling as well. We sometimes struggle at school, but they're struggling at home.
Right.
With children that have real needs. So.
And it wouldn't be the first meeting, most likely there will be a series of meetings that will lead up to.
I think you could have a visit to the facility and the teachers and all those types of things.
So it's fluid throughout the year?
Yeah.
So you can go in and out for a month or so?
Yeah.
Technically, you could, yeah.
I'm glad you asked that question, because sometimes it isn't a sentence. You know, it isn't like, okay, now they're gone type thing. It is go, grow, learn, adjust. Again, I'm speaking out of my field somewhat, Rhonda, and it's bring back in for periods of time, test runs. If you run into a snag, then maybe you'll go back for a period of time. So yes, fluid would be the word, but anyway.
And so our district, we have to provide transportation.
Yep.
What's the transportation like?
Well, it'll be a full bus. It'll be a car or
A car, and who's the driver?
Well, that's. Yeah.
You can make the wrong direction to do it.
But don't we already have a van or a Suburban that brings kids
But
to school?
what Kevin's saying is, do we have drivers or?
Yeah, because we're gonna have to drive one or two kids potentially to Blacksburg every day.
Yeah. And you may.
We've had similar situations in the past where when we used to, I can't think of it, it's over by agency, we've transported kids that have been in facilities, so it's not something new we've done, so.
And potentially an associate.
Yeah.
Most likely an associate.
So one of our associates will drive it.
Okay, look at page 9, under duration. It looks like a cut and paste thing there. What are those dates? 2018, and we're gonna look at it in 2019. Why is that there? See, I thought this was a old program and we were just joining it.
No.
But you're saying it's a brand new thing, and what's this junk in here for?
What's this junk?
Yeah, well, these states
I don't know
don't-
that it's junk, but I think it's an error that they're using.
It's a Boyle's plate that they're using from somebody else.
Yeah.
I figured that out. But I'm not gonna vote for this with that in there.
Well, we'll take it out. Could you vote with it contingent upon the appropriate changes being made?
Well, I'd have to think about it again.
Okay, well, why don't you think about that for a little bit, and then.
Yeah, I know from my experience, being in the schools, doing my professional job, there's an absolute need for this.
Yeah.
I agree with Mike completely. We have had situations since when I've been on the board where I appreciate what Tom was saying, that as hard as we were trying, I'm absolutely certain that we were not meeting the students' needs. It was
Just trying everything.
It was beyond our ability to meet students' needs, and it had an impact on everybody. I mean, on everybody, and not a good impact on the student at all. I agree with Mike completely. As hard as, this doesn't sound easy to do, as Kevin pointed out, we're transporting students on a daily basis, not real close to us, but it's definite need.
I don't know if it'll be easy. I know any new thing that's started, there's always kinks that have to be worked out. But I feel like the work Tom's done with some of the other superintendents, that the desire and the the sincerity of what they're trying to do is real. So I feel like it's a good thing to try, so.
Might have been actually, Tom might have just been here when we had, I can remember that we were discussing, the board was discussing what, to your point, Rhonda, what powers the board has to actually resolve a matter that we weren't set up to provide for the students' needs. And so this is addressing something that was been very real since I've been on the board.
But I would ask that you approve it contingent upon those changes that Bob has seen here, and the timelines being fixed so that they're accurate.
I move to approve with the duration paragraph and time changes.
Thank you, clerk. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. And Tom, thank you, Ron, for those that participated in this, because it's really, as we said, it's really addressing the need.
We hope it'll make a difference.
We have a ADLM resolution in our packet to consider. It's adopting the ADLM's regional, multi-jurisdictional, local hazard mitigation plan.
So when I read through this, I'm like, how are we involved in this and why? I don't get it.
Can you address that better than any of us? I don't know.
Well, and quite honestly, I'm not sure 100% what it is. I'm guessing it's more for natural disasters,
Right,
using facilities, using our facilities for natural disasters.
So we would open the
Housing.
gym up for housing and things like that?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rhonda invested quite a bit of time working with a group of people. Mike Lamb in local, I think, and fire.
It'll be part of our emergency operation plan that we're required to do and update annually. So this is just an extra amendment or a documentation that goes into it. Actually, we got it from Nicole Moore, sent it to us, and then I contacted Mike about it. It's actually just to give them permission to show that we're all collaborating together. Like Mike said, for the emergency preparedness, and it'll probably, I don't know for a fact, but usually then that will open up some grant opportunities for them to apply for some stuff.
Okay. So
mitigation stuff for us, for the counties.
So this is checking their block on their planning, and our potential involvement would be in the case of some sort of natural disaster, we would open up the gymnasium.
Right.
We get reimbursed for any expenses.
Right.
Okay. And just a side note, as part of this, the principals have talked this summer and stuff, and they've given, Emma kind of keeps track of our emergency plan and the updates. We don't actually have to bring the whole plan back to the board unless there's more than 10% change in the plan. It needs to be kept confidential. The building principals go over it with their emergency teams. We've updated, they've given her the information to update like the names and stuff, because we've had staff turnover and things like that. The past year, because of COVID, we haven't been able to do some of the training we've done in the past. When we talked administratively with Tom this year, we're hoping to get some of that reviewed or redone. We've had a lot of new staff. We'd like to revisit the ALIS training if it's a way we can do it. Each building principal is going to contact the police department and see what we can do about that, and in a safe manner under COVID circumstances and things like that. But that is being reviewed, our emergency plan.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Then I just would say something about the confidentiality plan is, please understand that, because if you have a shooter, if you're taking kids to another location, you don't want bad guys knowing all those details. So
I guess just to touch on that, probably, I need an updated version.
Yeah.
Professional.
We need a motion.
Yes,
I move we approve.
the resolution.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Thank you, Chris. From the Cedar preschool contract, and Julie's not with us, so Tom, we can, Julie's gonna.
Rhonda we just talked about this today, it's just the, collaborating with them at a higher level. What was the exchange we kind of did, Rhonda, help me?
Well, it's not necessarily the same, like the Kids World, we have a 28 agreement, and Lisa can talk more about the money part of it, but basically, we're full up at the preschool, like Julie's letter says here, and we want to partner with Head Start so that they can take our excess, and it's my understanding they're almost full too. So the good news out of this whole realignment or readjusting of programs that Julie's done with early childhood is we feel like between all the different community partners, we've increased the number of kids that are participating in some type of program, which is a good thing. Hopefully those kids will all stay within our district and be our students. And so basically it's just, we already provide transportation to Kids World, so it would just be tacking on I believe it's 5 students, isn't it, Lisa? That would be going to Head Start. And then the food service, it's a similar situation that we do with Kids World, that we just need to do an agreement with them.
All Head Start children can get free lunch, so we're providing the meals, but we can also get reimbursed.
So Head Start at Kids World?
Yes, it's in that building.
I see. Okay.
It's a great effort. Appreciate it very much.
Julie's done a lot of work on it.
Yes, she has.
Motion to approve the CETA preschool contract.
Mike, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Thank you. You have to approve a first reading of Board Policy 501.3. It's in our packet.
See the change.
The change is right there.
Yeah.
Anything in particular to say about it? Clarification?
It's just tacking on kindergarten. It's just, Julie had went to a legal workshop and the attorney had mentioned that you could count kindergarten if it was in your board policy for attendance. And so they make those phone calls now, but she feels like this would just give us a better understanding with parents to make sure they understand the importance of attendance. And so it's just making it kindergarten versus 6-year-old, so in the K-12.
Any questions? We have a motion to approve the first reading.
Move to approve the first reading.
Thank you. Is there a second?
So,
All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Thank you. We have personal business procedures, and we had some that were sent out to us, 2, I believe, Madison Gratz, I believe, was sent out to us, and I think it was a volunteer.
And then Aaron's
Okay. And so I think there's 2 to add to our list here. Hold it up on my computer.
What is the Madison branch one? It's just a half year.
You want to speak to that, Karen, on Madison, Brad?
Yes, yes. Madison is actually completing her education program in the fall. We've talked a little bit about our inability to attract a special education teacher to fill a position. And so in light of that, we were able to talk with her about what her plans were for the spring semester. So we have worked together with our special education teachers to design a plan. We're fortunate that she is going to be doing some student teaching with us between October and December, and then we'll be able to have her on board. So our onboarding is actually going to look a little different with this teacher, but we are extremely excited to have Madison coming on board with us. And, you know, as we said before, we do have a shortage of educators right now. And so we feel very fortunate that we're able to work together to make this happen. And so my 2 special education teachers were involved in the process. And I think we feel very good about moving forward with this position. So we're excited. Are there
The
questions?
certification, she doesn't have the certifications and things right now, right?
No, she's not officially certified right now. She did work for us last year while she was continuing to go through her process for becoming a teacher. So she will be certified as an elementary teacher, as well as a special education teacher through 8th grade. So
when she graduates in December, whatever, she'll have that.
correct. Yep, she will be certified in December.
She can't serve unless she has all the right certifications and degrees.
And I guess I'm wondering, do we need to put in a stipulation? No, like on this is.
Stipulation
Can
is-
be meeting all requirements.
No,
Yeah.
because we can't.
We can't legally put her in a classroom without a license, so if it would happen that she didn't get it, we would just have to let you know that we have not be able to hire her at that point.
She's gotta show us a certificate.
Yeah. So we will put her in there with that.
Karen, I don't know if this is for you or for Rhonda, but how long does it take in the state of Iowa after you graduate to get your license?
How long? Just-
Right
I mean,
now,
it's
it's delayed, quite honestly, but she will start that process prior to that. So we'll have verification of her graduation as well as all of those steps. So they know that that she's got a contract pending her graduation. So hopefully at mid-year, it won't be as long as what it is right now.
She wouldn't be any different than in the spring of the year when we would hire people to come teach for us in the fall. Historically, we've hired numerous people, we bring their name to the board that haven't graduated yet because they're still finishing up. I mean, that's very common.
We hire people all the time that want the salary schedules to be right teachers, and then we put the salary out here.
Yeah.
So if she graduates, do you have to take a test to get the license? No, you just have to graduate.
No, by the end of this year, her college will have given her recommendation and all that, so she should be able to apply as soon as she's done. And it'll just be a matter of how fast the BOE turns it around, and right now, they're pretty good, especially if principals call them about, and they know that they need to get it done.
I have 2 daughters who became teachers. One went to school in Kansas, one in Missouri, and they had to take a test.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do the praxis.
That's
Do
it.
they still do that?
No.
So I wouldn't have to do that. Okay, because that kind of held up them getting a license, like that's.
And most colleges, they do that while you're doing your college classes, they make you do that.
Well, I had one that was caught up in the COVID thing, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I think so. Thank you, Karen. I did want to mention, in addition to the volunteer agreement, I do see there's a contract here that I hadn't noticed with Aaron Beeson also. Not on our list, and I didn't mention it earlier, so we would be considering that one as well.
Do we need to separate one of these or have a stipulation on the bus driver that paid leave? Before we take actions on it. So, do it more today. So I'm retiring from my bus driver position immediately. I would like to have my sick leave, flex leave, and flex bank on my last check. So when we approve this, since he came in after, so he's not eligible because he decided to retire after the. Yeah, so do we have to make that stipulation when we approve this?
Or not because it's false.
Or not approve it?
Well,
I'm just saying because it's in here.
Right, but what's the exact language, read that?
I would like my sick leave and flex bank on my last check.
I asked that same thing when we had a couple custodians or food service workers. And I think it was, we don't pay that anyway.
Yeah, that's
According to policy.
Right, he came in after policy. I just didn't know if when we did the approval, if we had to say
He wants that, but
he's not gonna get it.
he can't have it, because he can't do it, because that's
That's not a problem. He did retire soon. Okay, so that's, we're gonna approve this, but because of policy, we don't have to do this special action. Just wanted to make sure before we
I
approve
think
it.
that Mike said that's how we addressed it previously. Any other questions about any of these? These, the personal business procedures? If there's not, we could take them as a group. If you'd like, adding the ones that were sent to us after work, Madison, Aaron Beeson, and Gene Smothers, their volunteer agreement.
I move to approve the personnel business procedures.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 The opposed, say no. Thank you, folks. Committee reports, I was not able to attend the finance committee meeting, so I don't know if there's anything discussed that you wanted to share, please feel free to, about topics you discussed.
I would say the biggest, or one of the big things was just giving ourselves a deadline to review the support staff compensation and figuring out a simpler system sooner than later. And then we did get the numbers for increasing insurance deductibles, but we had a couple of questions on that to double check that vehicles were included and it wasn't just for property, because that might influence us on our decision. We also talked about an opt-out of medical insurance issue, which is how it will be for this year for sure, but possibly seeing if we can change wording in the future for it, if that's even a possibility, and then making a decision on if we want to do it or not. I would say that was it.
We're continuing to opt out as we have it in place.
Yes. Because you have to.
Yeah.
But discussed, changing the wording if it's even allowed. And then we can decide if we want to change the wording or not, but it wouldn't be for this school year anyway, so it would just be something we'd have to have in place before contracts next year.
It's more of a commitment to look at the policy for next budget.
Yeah.
Most of the school.
I don't know the last time that we got through, I don't know if there's anything from the last facilities committee meeting that we haven't already talked about. We had a update from Michelle.
Are all the summer projects on task, the small ones?
Yeah, the chiller, we haven't talked about at the high school, is we're wrapping that up, and it's all installed, and now they're doing the testing to make sure all the technology is working in it, so.
It's on, so.
Does it work?
Oh yeah, it's a lot cooler.
Okay.
It's a lot cooler. You look at the auditorium windows, there's a lot of condensation on them because it's so much cooler on the inside now. So, I think they still have to, like Tom said, working on the controls to make sure the boiler's running at the right, so it takes the moisture out and all that. So.
The press box, last time I talked to Rich and Tim, is Tim still with us? I don't know if they had carpeted yet.
No, we did on Sunday, because I want that.
That's the only thing that needs.
A lot of turf in the parking lot.
So the roof's on Lakeview, is there a roof in the high school?
We're doing
They're doing science and roof right now, and they recovered the tech wing roof, but when we got a bunch of rain, a little bit of water came in again, so I know they're looking at that again.
And the Lakeview roof project's done. And now you got me going and thinking, the city, of course, has all their site work that's going on around the high school and stuff, but will be done.
It looks like they have that whole retaining wall, they have it all poured, they need to backfill the dirt.
And just a heads up, that's the company that we had to do the parking lot. So I'd like to, so it may take a while.
Looks good though. I mean, it will look good.
Yeah.
The city's looking
The
so
one-
with all the.
Did you
Oh,
say you
yeah.
had a leak in the tech wing?
Or-
Or,
It was actually in the band room. A couple spots that it's leaked previously, and they went in and changed all the ceiling tiles, and then, what was it, last weekend or the weekend before, we had a good rain and some water came in, so they got the company back.
A new carpet in the band room.
New carpet, you should see the band room, it's sharp. They have new sound tiles, they're red, the sound tiles are, and they have new carpet. It's a little bit darker and obviously nice and clean. It looks sharp, looks really good. And I would also say just the job they've done in the tech wing, they're doing the floors right now, I haven't been able to get in, but the job they did in the tech wing with the cleaning, they ripped out the carpet, they put down laminate flooring, the painting, I mean, wow. Very impressive.
That was all on the list, and then, of course, our preschool parking is done in the new driveway, and that looks nice, and so, yeah.
not to prolong our discussion, but can you share your decision on the ticketing booth at the,
Yeah, I was curious what you guys doing.
at the field?
Tim,
Yes.
you've been working with Rich on that, I've got an idea, why don't you go ahead and then I'll fill in. We got folks that are gonna build it, and materials are at, says it turned over to him, then I keep talking. Tim, go ahead.
So we're not doing one of those 10x10 pop-ups.
It's,
No.
we're waiting for the contractor down there to break up some concrete for us. And I told him today, if he's not gonna get to us, I'll go hire somebody else to get it busted up. But he said he's gonna call me back this afternoon and didn't, so we'll find out about that, but they want to get started on at least the north side ticket booth to get that done. So it's coming along. It's gonna be a rush. We kind of had to wait for them to get the turf down on the field because they needed that driveway to get the stuff down there. So we're working on it. The guys are ready to start building, materials here. So it won't take long once we get to rolling on it.
And we'll know Wednesday, Tim, when we have our construction meeting about when they're gonna tear that concrete out.
Yeah,
So we can pin them down there, but Corey said they would do that.
yeah, he did.
He said that it wouldn't be a big project with the size of the equipment that they have, but it's gotta tie into the sidewalk that's going down beside the red line.
It's not the same place as the one that was tore down.
Where the-
It's actually gonna be a lot of traffic flow that has to be figured out, because it's going farther into the parking lot kind of.
Right.
And that's why that island was taken out.
Which I like that one being taken out, because I feel like less chance of curb checking it.
It is, but there's traffic flow issues that need to get addressed.
And, yeah.
Because really no one will drive there.
What's that?
No one will really drive there then, probably.
Drive to it.
If the ticket booth's more in the parking lot, no one would really be taking that
Well,
turn.
Well, it's the way the parking lines are set up. Got to figure out a good way for traffic flow with where the booth's gonna be and the traffic coming into that farthest west row and things like that.
Rochelle always used the word we had to create a plaza, which didn't always make sense to me, but now I see what she's talking about.
It'll look much improved, and then it's got, does it have 4 or 3? A ticket booth where you can go to, I think there's 3 of them.
Great, thank you.
What's the structure made out of, is it wood or block?
It's not blocked. Tim,
Yes,
what's the structure of the ticket booth?
it's a wooden frame. It'll have block looking type of siding and stuff on it. It's a good looking design, metal and block, looking like block, I should say.
Red roof, I think.
Yeah.
We'll do some stuff, and then, of course, we thought about an arch going over the top of it with the Big Red Athletic Complex, Centerville Athletic Complex.
The Tom Riddle Athletic Complex.
Yeah, they don't know. You think that's gonna happen, because they don't have that much money, you guys want money, to put my name up there.
Okay, thank you.
So we're talking about doing that in wrought iron, kind of?
Yeah, and CNC had put together, I think, something that Rich had worked with them on, so.
Okay.
Now, that could be something that depends on if there's a naming of some nature. That could be an example of something that wouldn't get done for the first football game. My best goal, and I hope you share that, is we just want that to be a finished product when we invite Albie.
Yeah, it kind of has to be, yeah.
Because Albie is a community that would take great joy in seeing our progress here in Appalachia County.
For lack of progress?
Progress.
Okay.
Okay, Tim,
Yes.
where are we at with water in the concession stand? That all got turned off because part of that pipe went to the football field
Yeah.
so did you test that all out or?
We have no water down there right at the moment, but we will. By the time we have our first game, we'll have water in the concession stand.
We also ran into an issue with the
Lighting?
Apparently there's wires all over the place down there that no one really
That
knew
weren't deep enough and.
where they went.
So that when they ran with whatever they run with, the wires weren't deep enough to identify where they were. So I think all the wiring is gonna go around the field now, so you never have to dig up that field to.
They rebored the lines. They was down there this weekend. They haven't pulled the new wire yet, but that's coming together. It's all coming together.
So on the archway, I'm just thinking of the scoreboard. So you got the beautiful sunroom up there, and you got the white background, but you got the black frames. That makes it hard to read sound. Next time you go and look at it.
No, I have. First time I
yeah,
looked at it, I think it's, I don't know if it's distractive or what, but it isn't a clear thing. The one guy at the meeting the other day said you just need to paint the background different.
Can we paint the black letters white? Are the black cross members white?
I don't know. But when Don was his name, and he said, no, I understand perfectly what you're seeing there. And if you were to go in and paint some of that, either black or white, would clear it up.
Could be a shame to have that beautiful field and not be able to read the word Centerville up there.
I don't know how I would agree.
There's other schools that are like that though, because I'll go and I'll be like, oh, their silence.
Well, let's be better than that. Let's raise the standard.
No, I agree. I think it needs to be figured out on how to make that clear that we can see.
Can we just give Tim a paintbrush and parachute him in there and you can land
We
on it?
don't wanna put Tim on a ladder, I need him.
Yeah.
Tim falls off a ladder and then we're all
We're in
down
trouble.
there.
But is that something you think we can get done the next?
Yeah, I think we need to figure out what we need to do and then do it. It's not an instrumental project.
No. I didn't know if just painting the black verticals braces just white to match with the white behind it. But I'm not a color expert, so.
We'll talk about that again.
Good report, thank you.
I know there's a ton of people excited about it. I've not heard one negative thing about what we're doing out there. I really thought I would. I'm hearing tons of positive things and seeing tons of positive things on social media. And I think the community is way more excited about this than I really thought it was.
Judging by the number of cars driving through there, it's just kind of, every time I go down there, there's more cars on my visit.
I only go twice a day. Twice a day, that's it.
I go a couple times a week to go there and check on it, and half the time there's somebody driving by, especially now that the turf is down.
Oh, in one of our meetings, one of the construction workers said somebody came down and said, "This field has raised my taxes 20%. I knew you'd like that.
I think the best is yet to come, quite honestly. When you put the red track and you get all the markings on it, you'll have you'll have an incredibly attractive, but even more so than that, I think the design and the materials, especially in our field. See, I mean, you can go on the cheap on that surface, which we chose not to do.
Yeah.
And you go on the cheap and you got something that's like this, you know. So I think our field is gonna be well received, and get the track on it and get our ticket booth up, it'll be a nice stuff.
When I talked to one of the workers, actually that was laying the turf, and he was commenting about our choice that we used. Because you can go with like a hard turf or a soft turf. He said this is because of the way that they mix the sand and the chips. He said this is the best option there was.
Well, I talked to I think it was Corey, was his name, who's doing all the dirt work, gravel work.
He's the project manager.
Yeah, I was down there and I asked them, they're putting the first layer of rock down. I said, are we doing this right? Have we made all the right decisions? And I said, we spent $100,000 to put this supplement in there. And he says, he absolutely will. He said, this thing, 50 years from now, you'll replace the turf, but you're not gonna replace the dirt underneath. He said a lot of districts choose not to do that, and after 10 years, they're tearing it up and redoing the base.
Yeah, he talked about a project they're doing
I
this
felt
summer
better about that, yeah.
where the base wasn't done right, and they were going and just put new turf on, but it cost a lot more money, and once they got it down under there.
That's what he was saying, so I feel a lot better about that money we spent now, so.
Yeah, I think we got the right company to do it. I think Rich had it figured out.
Good job, Rich.
That's great.
He's not on there.
He's not on there.
No, watch the replay.
Good reports, thanks, folks. We can move on to financial reports. Do you have any questions about the financial reports?
Just a quick question. One, we're getting tuition, we're paying tuition to other districts. What's level 1 and level 2?
No, that's for special education.
That's what I figured. I just don't remember ever looking at that very closely before. The other item on there is we were paying a water bill for water on the practice field. And the last time we had a meeting, I asked Rich Parker about why do we have water there. He said, well, we turned that off. But now this is the second month we're paying $30 for. Do you think somebody goes down and reads a meter at the practice field?
Probably, as long as there's a meter in there, you may be charged.
Okay, minimum bill.
No, it's been turned off.
No, as long as there's a meter,
They've been charged?
as long as there's a meter there.
You'd probably get a minimum bill if you have a meter. Yeah.
Well, get that meter out of there.
Yeah, as long as you don't want any water there.
You don't want any water forever again?
Well, I thought Rich didn't want any water there, does he?
Don't know, we'll find out.
Yeah, we can ask.
Being a water guy, I keep a water meter wherever you think you might want meter water.
Yeah, Marty doesn't want us to take it out.
You take it out and you charge
Oh,
$100 for it back in.
He's got 1 meter to us, so the city.
One meter.
A big meter.
Any more questions? I had one, Lisa, on page 16, did Chico Construction give us a discount, there's a donation?
They did. Without looking at it, I think it was a 10%.
$24.63, yeah, that's 10% discount. That's worth saying thanks to David and his crew. Let me see him. Appreciate that. And, I did have a question on page 17. It's the US Bank payment systems.
Cameron.
That's a camera.
Those, I'm pretty sure, the tech department equipment, $6,033 that we use the credit cards for. Those were those TVs, right?
Yes, those were 9 TVs from Walmart. And it was a fiasco to get 9 TVs.
Same agree, we did not.
Yeah, I was having trouble putting US Bank together with the tech.
Yeah, so that's it.
So,
And
okay.
I think we did that, we used a credit card.
Next year.
Cameron, wasn't that because Amazon, it was just
They want
as
us,
easy to go there?
it was easier to go there because you couldn't get that many on Amazon either.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah, well, I'm still on that page 17 where the Evers bill, why does that say Delaney Evers? It's obviously concrete.
I don't know. let me-
Which page is that one on?
let's see.
17. It doesn't really change anything. Just seems-
Unless it's for packed.
Yeah.
What?
She does the packed now, like Chamber and Main Street.
No, this is concrete stuff.
Stuff comes.
Page
It's
17.
concrete at Lakeview.
I'll have to look, it might,
Lakeview walks to the playground summer project, drive area summer project,
it might just be that.
Madison Street parking.
The wrong vendor was chosen, so
Oh, I see.
I will, we can change that for the bills, so if you wanna approve.
Well, I'm sure the check's gonna go to the right person, it's not gonna go.
Well, no, we
I
wanna
mean,
make
that's
sure
big
that,
bucks.
right,
I would keep that there.
it's probably when she keyed it in, it just popped up.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
yeah, that's what I figured.
Put in a vendor code.
Well, I will
JP
check that
system.
in the morning.
Okay,
Yeah, Bob might want to make sure that's, the check's got right.
Any more questions? Is there a motion to approve the financial reports with that, looking into the,
Yeah, thank you for that.
looking into the vendor?
I move to approve the financial reports.
Your second?
Second.
All those in favor say yes.
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 Okay, any opposed say no. Tom, we're at your report, if there's anything still that we haven't.
I just I've given you, I'm going to give you a couple things, 2 documents. One is our back to school events and activities, and the other is our return to school plan as it relates to COVID-19. Let me get it in your hands and then I'll just speak to it for a second. Pass that down. Pass that down, and I'll see to it. Let's see, now you got 3, Marty needs one. And then I'll see to it that the other 2 board members get this. You can read, so I don't need to go down, but I think we're pretty well organized for the beginning of the school year. All the things we do, you can see they're August 16th, and new teacher orientation, and then on the 17th, all of our teachers are back. The 18th is Wednesday with our open houses and our workshop days. Thursday is preparation again. Friday, which is kind of unique in our district, and I'm not certainly being critical of it, it's our teachers come in to get all ready, and then they have a day off before we bring all of our kids back, so they kind of appreciate that. First day of school is August 23rd, so we're hoping to be ready for that.
I have a question, public announcer. Do we have a board meeting on the 23rd?
No, we don't have a work session in August just because we seem to get tied up with school beginning school. The second document is our return to learn plan. It is not, it is being vetted by administrators in the Department of Health. There's 7 pages to it. This is not a lot different than what we disseminated last year to our community, but you can certainly look this over. I rely heavily on, I rely heavily on quite a few people, quite honestly. The pandemic response team, which is about 12 people, including transportation, athletics, food service, and the building principals, as well as Chris Larson and Rebecca. Help me with Rebecca's last name. What is it?
Anna Baker.
Anna Baker, yeah. She's the new Rhonda. So they have this in their hands, and they're gonna return this to me. And then we get it to our community. There's always, sometimes people will, we have some families that want things just as soon as they can get them, like August 1st. And then we have some families that if you give them something August 1st, that's way too far ahead of August 23rd. So there's kind of a timing there that you gotta put into place. But this will be disseminated. I'm hoping to disseminate this tomorrow publicly. I tell Kate, shoot it to the world, and this will be our document that we live with. you know that we cannot require masks. That's against the law. You know that we can't ask people if they've been vaccinated. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have a commitment to doing some things to help mitigate the spread, because we didn't have the word Delta variant when we walked out of here, I don't believe in June 2nd or 3rd. That word wasn't around. So now we're dealing with that. So we'll have some challenges at the beginning of the year, but those two things they're out there. And we'll try to make sure that what I've been trying to impress upon my building administrators is simply, we're educators and we need to rely upon the health community, which is Chris and Rebecca, to give us guidance when we have a child that is symptomatic, and we follow those rules. We don't really make those rules. So the testing and the contact tracing and so on. So we'll do the temperature taking when they come in. We'll encourage kids to wash their hands, and wherever we can do social distancing, we will. And hopefully deal with it as best we can. So there, as we all know, we'd be in total denial. There are some emotions that go with all of this. We'll follow the law. We will follow the law, and we will not ask anybody to do something, nor will we do something that is in violation of that. But at the same time, there's some common sense factors that we think we can do that are the right thing to do, that aren't infringing upon anybody's rights. So this is, I just probably need to stop, because we all know that it's going to be a challenge for us, and we know that there's emotions to it. But as your superintendent, we have an incredibly strong obligation to bring 1,300 kids back into our school, and to do everything we can to create a certain degree of normalcy without this hanging over their head 24/7. And that's what we attempt to do. They come to our school, they need to have an opportunity to learn and to grow and to feel safe and to be appreciated. The one thing that happens at Matt and his staff, maybe it happens a little bit more at the secondary level. If there's a kid wearing a mask and there isn't a kid wearing a mask, we've got to respect those two decisions. That's just, and we can't have students thinking that they can bring either way. We just have to be able to manage that, and because we just can't be dealing with having all of the stuff that's going on out there. We've got to do everything we can within reason to give our kids a chance to come to school and learn. So you can tell that I have feelings about that, and I hope you share those, that we want our kids to come to our school and feel safe and be engaged in an academic setting. But who knows how all this is going to work out? I'll stop. Thank you. Somebody.
Questions for Tom?
Do you think our enrollment's gonna stay the same or go up a little?
Well, you know how superintendents are, they want it to go up a little bit. Oh gosh, I would just love to gain about 10 kids. There's something inside of me that says, Bob, that we may be hanging in there pretty well this year. But until we get that official count, the official list, which takes us all the way into what? October. But I mean, we really have a good idea prior to that, but it doesn't become official to that. But I don't think we're gonna see a big hit on our enrollment in a negative way. But that's pretty speculation. Plus, Ron has got insight.
No. I'm just gonna remind you, Tom, Coffee Clutch.
Coffee Clutch. We're having Coffee Clutch Wednesday at Lakeview. And so that's at 10 a.m. So we're having that, and then we have our breakfast for new teachers and breakfast for everybody else. We do have a community event with PACT hosting a teacher luncheon at Lakeview at 11:30 on the 19th. So we've got a lot of good activity going on, a lot of good enthusiasm for the beginning of their school year.
One question I've been asked a few times, we need teacher training. Is at Lakeview or all of their guests, is that in person? Is that, how's that going?
Thursday, Thursday the 18th?
Did they-
19th, Thursday the 19th.
I have Lakeview 3 to 5, grades 3 and 5, from 5:30 to 6:30. Are you talking about open house?
Yeah,
Yeah.
taking stuff in, meeting teachers.
Yeah, open houses. High school is same night from 7 to 8. And Howard is at 6:30 on the 19th. And
We are
then,
doing them in person. We're doing them in person, and we split them up so that there were only half as many students and families there. That's why we did 2 nights.
and then the preschool is an open house on the 24th from 5 to 6. So yes. Next board meeting. Second Monday of September is the 13th. And then we'll start on board work sessions the 4th Monday.
Is it, Tom?
That's it, thank you.
More questions for Tom? Yeah, we could, we're at the point of having a motion to adjourn.
So we'll
Thanks, Bob. Is there a second?
Second?
Super. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed say no. Thank you all very much.